Hi, this is Josh.
And this is Carter.
Welcome to our second episode of Hollywood.
It's good to be back, ladies and gentlemen. And today we are going to cover one of the masterpieces of bad films. I didn't have that big of a problem with it, but there are a lot of other people that did. X-Men 3.
The Last Stand.
Okay. So The Last Stand comes off of Bryan Singer's stint from X-Men 1 and 2. Singer did not direct this film. Singer went on to direct what we covered in our last one, Superman Returns. So, unfortunately, he was not at the helm for X-Men 3. Now, this story actually kind of picks up, starting off 20 years after, 20 years before current events. It picks up with Charles and Magneto going to the house of a prospect looking for the greatest, most powerful mutant of all time. Lo and behold, it's Jean Grey, and she's about 10 years old, and they realize, hey, she is the most powerful mutant we've ever encountered. We need to help her, and Magneto's like, we need her power.
And this caused some continuity issues because in the prequel X-Men First Class, Xavier was crippled before he reached that age.
That's very true. He just kind of gets up out of the car, and with Patrick Stewart kind of being ageless,
yeah,
he looks exactly the same. At least they tried to make Ian McKellen look much younger with some hair dye and whatnot, but Patrick Stewart just kind of looks like Patrick Stewart.
He came out of the womb looking like that.
Yeah, I think he did. I think that's how he actually came into this world, as like this 40-year-old balding man. But then they get Jean, so they go to flash forward 10 years before current events. You see a kid mutilating himself in the mirror, and lo and behold, it's Angel ripping off his wings. And his father discovers, oh no, my child's a mutant. So then a movie jumps to present time, and all of a sudden, Logan, Storm, and the younger members, Kitty Pryde, Colossus, Iceman, and Rogue are in the middle of this giant battle against a Sentinel, and things going off. And this is actually my favorite scene in the movie because it does look like everything's gotten real. And you see the Sentinel in the distance, and they even pull off the fastball special with Colossus and Wolverine. Colossus just hurls Wolverine into the Sentinel's head and lops his head off. It turns out it's a danger room. It was a training exercise.
They sort of follow up on that with X-Men Days of Future Past. They took place in that apocalyptic scenario.
It did, and God bless them for that. And that's kind of where I was hoping X-Men 3 was going, but nope, it goes that. And we, see poor Scott Cyclops mourning the loss of Jean Grey, and suddenly he has a vision, and he just takes off for Alkaline Lake.
Yeah. To clarify, Jean Grey had sacrificed herself in X-Men 2 and died, and then I don't know if it's at the end of the movie or it was like a post-credit sequence. You could see the Phoenix symbol under the water.
Yeah, and that is an important part. I forgot to bring up. Yeah, Jean did die, so he goes looking for her. Meanwhile, we meet Beast, being played by Kelsey Grammer. He's a high-ranking politician working with the U.S. government, for mutant rights, and so on and so forth. And he goes to the mansion, and all of a sudden, over the newswire comes there's an announcement for the mutant cure.
Yeah, that was sort of based off a Joss Whedon story called Gifted. It's good when Grant Morrison did the X-Men, they were all wearing leather outfits. Joss Whedon came on to Astonishing X-Men and sort of brought them back into their costumes. And so all that Cure storyline sort of came out of Joss Whedon's storyline with Gifted.
No, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
So he's pretty much merged Gifted and Dark Phoenix Saga was the idea.
And I'm going to go ahead and say this right now. Merging storylines do not work that well.
Yeah.
See time and time again where they take creative licenses from books or graphic novels and try to merge them into one film, and it just doesn't translate well. It gets messy.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, we shoot forward. Magneto is attending a rally of mutants, and he, comes up. He's trying to form the Brotherhood. Basically, he's trying to handpick an army. And
he's getting ready for war.
He's like, stuff's gonna get real, and I'm gonna need an army. And unfortunately, it just happened to be pretty much the Murlocs. I mean, that's what it felt like to me.
Yeah.
It felt like the Murloc Underground. Those were some not really choice mutants I would take in battle with. But
their powers were a little bit off, and then they were never like supermodel looking like Emma Frost or Jean Grey. They were more the disfigured. They'd be like a frogman or something.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be your typical pretty X-Men.
No. But then we shoot to Scott, and Scott's at Alkaline Lake, and suddenly Jean rises from the ashes of the water as a magnificent phoenix. And her powers manifest, and she's able to control his eyes, and she kisses him, and all of a sudden he's gone. Blink of an eye. She absorbs. I think it's almost like this weird seductive vampire kiss for whatever reason. Later, Logan and Storm go to Alkaline Lake based off of feelings from Xavier, and they find Jean laying at the side of the lake. They're like, we have to bring her back. Where's Cyclops? What happened? All these questions. So back to the Shaw of the Mansion, Xavier gives the reveal to Logan that she has a more powerful personality instead of an alien entity. It's a personality called the Phoenix that lied deep in her subconscious. She took years to put up walls to put it away. And they're trying to work on her and have her regain consciousness. So they shoot to Worthington Labs where they're working on the cure, and Angel at this point is going to be the first test subject because his father developed the cure at Worthington Labs, and he denies the cure and flies off on Gilded Wing. And it shoots that. Logan then wakes Jean up, and she's playing him this kind of weird seductress role.
Because he's always had a crush on her.
He has always had a crush on her. It's a well-documented fact in X-Men mythology that, Logan always wanted Jean. And he knew he couldn't have her, but it was always there. But it goes up to that, and, Jean, goes crazy and, leaves the building, throws Logan against things. So they go trailing off to find her. She's at her childhood home, and, the Phoenix has emerged, and Xavier tries to reason with her, but she's having none of it, and lo and behold, kills Charles Xavier.
Sort of atomizes him almost.
Just breaks away his molecules for crazy reason, and Magneto's there. He picks her up, and he's like, "You need to come with me." So they do the funeral. Everybody's mourning, but Logan trails after Jean. They go to trailing after Jean, and I always find this interesting. Most of the X-Men, you don't see anybody kill anybody.
Yeah.
They're knocking them out, whatever. Not Wolverine. Right there, he kills 10 mutants on his way to try to get Jean.
He's never really hesitated to kill
Jean, and no, he really hasn't. And I've always found that interesting. And even when they tried to keep the movies a little, more kid friendly.
I think his powers are kind of set up to kill, though.
Yeah, they are. Well, he doesn't need to try, and he can just punch everybody out. He's walking.
He's got like brass knuckles in his regular knuckles.
Yeah, I mean, if Logan punches you, your jaw's gonna fall off. Period.
Yeah.
But they go up there and Magneto like throws Logan halfway across the forest and plans on marching on Warren Laboratories, which for some reason is Alcatraz. So the X-Men gather, they rally up, rah, rah, rah. So Magneto goes to the Golden Gate Bridge, and for some reason the only way that they can manage to reach the island is for him to tear apart the Golden Gate Bridge and use it as a flying transport to the island. Stay with me, folks. This was how this was filmed. And, but the X-Men know his plot. Logan knew it, so they take their Blackbird and fly off. And, they meet him there. Giant fight ensues, and a couple of their mutants, a couple of Magneto's mutants try to throw Mr. Warren off the building, but suddenly Archangel appears, proving that Archangel on his wings, like a bird, is just as fast as an SR-71 Blackbird.
Without flying much practice. He didn't have much practice because he was ashamed of his wings.
Yeah, he had him, he was just naturally as fast as the fastest plane ever invented. True story. But, the fights ensue. You have Juggernaut racing through the building after Kitty Pryde, and he pulls out that little meme of, about being the Juggernaut, bitch, and it kept on, but then he met Leech, who was the source of the Cybermen, bangs the head against the wall, gets knocked out. Iceman ends up fighting Pyro, because we all see this building up between the two of them since X-Men 2. And finally, Iceman goes full Iceman form and beats Pyro by just breaking his wrists, or the wrist command on his hand. Because Pyro can't generate his own fire. He has to have a source.
He's just a manipulator of fire.
But he cannot create, unlike Iceman, who can create out of thin air. But I think it has to do with water vapors everywhere. So
yeah.
But Magneto's confrontation, Colossus throws Wolverine to Magneto. Magneto catches him midair, talking to him, but Beast jumps out of nowhere and stabs him in the heart with 4 needles full of cure, thus nullifying Magneto and making him a human. At this point, Jean loses her sanity and starts just killing every human in sight by atomizing them. And Logan is left with no choice but to confront her. And, she's like throwing little bolts at him, have him disappearing and regenerating. He's just like, I love you, and stabs her right through the heart. And that's pretty much the end of it. We wrap up. The world is at peace. Rogue went on to have her powers cured because she can no longer stand it. But we see, at the very end of it, Magneto's sitting in a park playing chess, and he moves a chess piece just slightly with his mind.
So it's a temporary cure. That's what they insinuated.
And they also, if you stay for the after credit special, you go to Moira McTaggart and her research facility with the coma patient. And the coma patient wakes up, and you hear the voice of Xavier, like Moira, Charles, and screen goes to black. So that's basically the synopsis of X3, The Last Stand. So, Josh, you hated this more than I did. What did you find enjoyable about this film?
What I did like, I did like Famke Janssen's Dark Phoenix. I thought she did a pretty good job with that.
Mm-hmm.
I most of the acting was pretty good. I thought the effects were fairly well done. I'm trying to think what else I did like about it, because there were little pieces that were good, but as a whole, I don't think they fit well together.
Well, there was a lot of people that did not like this film. I know a lot of them. They were kind of ruined on the Bryan Singer outlook on it. Personally, I, excuse me, really enjoyed certain parts of this. Like, anytime you had Hugh Jackman and Kelsey Grammer in the scene, both of them together were chewing up the scene. And I would love to see them do something else as just two actors, because they're two phenomenal actors, and I think they would work well in anything they were put together with.
Mm-hmm.
I love the Danger Room scene early on. I touched on that, but I really dug that scene. Some of the effects were good. Like, Colossus did look like Colossus, and some of the power effects for Pyro and Iceman did look good. I thought, I kept thinking this. I kept watching Kelsey Grammer's Beast. I'm like, that was 4 hours in the makeup chair every morning, easy for him.
Yeah,
because it looked spot on. It looked great. And the fight scene, anytime in the end fight scene when Beast was finally, fighting off all these, mutant attackers, it looked really good.
He moved kind of like a tiger.
He did. It was kind of like this tiger gorilla hybrid.
Yeah.
And I thought a lot of that worked really well. Of course, you have to like everything with Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen.
Definitely.
Two world-class actors doing the best of what they do.
They have great screen chemistry as well. And they're good friends, but it kind of comes across on film.
It does. It really does. I thought they did, like usual, a phenomenal job with each other. They've never let us down the entire series. I love that Cyclops died. And I don't care who hates on that. I hate Cyclops. I always have. I think he's more of a Boy Scout than Captain America and Superman. Yeah,
even when they try to give him an edge, it never really works.
No, it doesn't. Even with the early 90s cartoon for X-Men, I thought the exact same thing. I think today, like, I hate this guy, and I wish somebody would kill him. And thank God, Jean Grey was like, you know what, I'm tired of him too.
Yeah, and he always comes across as like the overprotective boyfriend that just gets annoying.
Like, you stay away from my girl, Logan. I was really happy to see him go. It wasn't a knock on James Marsden. I've seen him in a lot of other things. He's done phenomenally well. It was just the character itself I can't stand. And I thought, some of the younger kids, Shawn Ashmore did a good job. There's certainly room for improvement as far as the acting skills for a lot of others, like they play Pyro, Aaron Stefford. Should have gone back to the drawing board on him, but that's one man's opinion. Now, what I didn't like about it, and there's a long list of things that could have been done better. First thing, we touched on this earlier, you were trying to tell two different storylines. You were trying to tell the Dark Phoenix saga. You're trying to tell the Cure saga. And X-Men's heart has always been a very kind of politically motivated comic. It's touched on many hot topic issues.
Initially, racism.
Racism being the big overtone, and it was still there. And thank God they didn't forget about it. But it's the whole, mutant versus non-mutant. Muties get out.
Yeah.
God hates Wolverine. But it really touched on that. It's still, and that's what it is at its core. But they were trying to tell so many different storylines throughout this entire film. It became very convoluted, very messy. Yeah, I think they could have done a better job slimming down the script and trying to trim it up with the important parts. And you also had the little love story between Iceman and Rogue and Kitty Pryde, and it just is too much. You're just trying to do so much throughout that film. It doesn't work. It becomes very messy.
Yeah.
The direction, not great, but I'm not a Brett Ratner fan.
Yeah, I'm not either.
Not many people are. At least, I don't know. It's kind of like we don't understand how Michael Bay keeps getting work. How does Brett Ratner keep getting work?
Yeah, they gave him, the budget for this movie was $210 million, which I think was the highest to that point in film.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a massive budget.
Well, it was a massive budget, and given how well X-Men 1 and 2 did, it's no surprise they had that budget.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they shouldn't have put it in a better director's hands, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And one thing that really made me mad about this film was Juggernaut.
Oh, yeah.
Like, first thing, a lot of us know Juggernaut's backstory. He is Jane Marco.
Yeah, he's Xavier's stepbrother.
Right. He's not a guy from England, and not even like Cockney England. It's played by Vinnie Jones in the movie. And I love Vinnie Jones. I've seen him do a lot of comedic roles and a lot of tough guy roles, and he's very believable and convincing as somebody who would slit your throat. But as a Juggernaut, you can't have a human guy in a rubber costume be Juggernaut.
No, it's like the Hulk. You have to use CGI.
Yeah, Juggernaut is a massive entity. Brought on by the Krytac crystal.
Yeah, because he's not a mutant. He gets his powers elsewhere. He's one of the few X-Men villains that's really not a mutant.
No, he is not a mutant at all. He got his powers from an outside source, and he became, an avatar for a long-forgotten god. And he had this incredible power, but there's no way. And it was a rubber suit, most of it.
Yeah.
And this awful-looking helmet. And
kind of looked like a gladiator get-up.
Yeah, almost, but bad. Just bad. And I'm a huge tank-loving superhero. Hulk and Juggernaut and all the big guys. I spent most of my life as a big guy, and I kind of connected with them. Like, that's what I want to do. I want to be that guy crashing through walls and just picking up cars and throwing them. And when they did that to him, it was just so disappointing. Like, they just did not have. And if you can't get it right, don't do it.
Yeah.
And the technology was there. Ang Lee's Hulk was already done. So the obvious technology for them to do something of that scale could have been done. They just chose to do it in a practical effects way that doesn't work.
Yeah.
You can't practical effects for something like that. It's impossible. That was, and some of the fight scenes, they used a lot of wire work.
Mm-hmm.
And it looked horrible. And it felt like it was Brett Ratner's first time doing any kind of action film.
Yeah, it looked more like a live stage production than
like
than a
Spider-Man
film.
After Dark.
Yeah, like their flying would be like, I can't see the wire, but I know it's there.
Yeah, and we couldn't see the wire. At least that they got that right, but it still looked bad. You could tell it was all the way through. That was a huge amount of wire work. And another thing, the whole Magneto uses the Golden Gate Bridge to access Alcatraz. There's so many other things you could do to get your army onto that island. But
I guess he likes the theatricality of it.
Well, I get that, but at the same time, like, Magneto's a smart tactician.
Yeah.
And he will do what it is to win at all costs, and he's not going to announce his coming with the Golden Gate Bridge.
I think he just load him up in the back of a tractor trailer.
You don't even have to do that.
Trailer.
You can put metal tips on everybody's shoes, and he can fly them all over.
Well, yeah, true.
Or so many other things you could have done. He could have hijacked a boat, and so many other tactical ways you can look at how this would have worked. This was the slowest and most painful way to do anything.
Yeah.
And there's also this one shot, if you notice, the sun is setting, and it's pretty, just start saying, it's low sun when he's crossing the bridge over, but suddenly, as soon as the bridge lands, it goes to dark.
It took him 3 hours to get...
Yeah, it's we're watching it, and, the bridge touches the ground, and suddenly it's dark. Just snap of a finger.
Yeah.
And just horrible.
And that scene looked pretty expensive. For as pointless as it was, I can't imagine that was a cheap scene to produce.
No, it most likely was not a cheap scene, and it may have been a case of Brett Ratner had extra money, and he's like, well, we can do this. Magneto has always been one for theatrics, but it's always been theatrics after the fact.
Yeah.
Never during the fact. He would have gone for the theatrics more along the lines. And, the other thing is, why didn't Warren Industries move Leech? Their most prized possession, the source of the cure. The country's on high Magneto alert.
Yeah.
So why do they keep him in the exact same place where everybody knows where he's at? You would have thought they would have just packed him up and moved him to an undisclosed location.
It wouldn't take much to do.
No, he was a little kid. You can drive away in a hatchback. Magneto's not going to be looking for a hatchback.
That
he
is
did
true.
have one mutant who could tell where other mutants are to help locate them, or that wasn't even fully explained how her powers worked or how far-reaching it was.
Yeah.
But there was also the fact of they went through that whole ranking system. You're a class 4 mutant, you're a class 3 mutant.
Yeah.
That's never fully explained as to what constitutes what. We know it's a power leveling.
Yeah, in the comics, it's in there, like, there's, like, Omega class mutants, and I don't think they've ever... They'll say who the big ones are, like Jean, obviously, would be, Magneto.
Yeah,
certain
Jean was
ones.
the only class 5 mutant, according to the movie.
Yeah.
It's like, the only class 5 mutant I've ever seen. Well, we understand she's ultra powerful. But it doesn't even need to be said that she's ultra powerful. We all know this by watching what's going on.
Yeah.
You don't need to classify the power levels at this point. Those were my big beefs with it. Josh, what did you have on your big beefs with X3?
Mine, what stuck out to me the most, and I'm not really sure why this actor did not return, but Alan Cumming, who made X-Men 2 pretty much as Nightcrawler, was so missing in X-Men 3.
Agreed, and it was never really explained, like, where Nightcrawler go.
Yeah, I mean, I missed Nightcrawler a lot, and even the subsequent movies. I mean, maybe he doesn't like putting on the makeup. I'm not sure why he hasn't returned to the role, but I mean, even they could recast it. But I love Nightcrawler. He's kind of the heart of the team, and I thought they could have used him in it. But that I don't know why he wasn't in it, so can't really count that against the film. Yeah, Juggernaut definitely bothered me. Just bad dialogue. Character, I mean, killing Cyclops I don't have a problem with. Killing Cyclops in a meaningless death, that kind of bothered me, because he's kind of like the leader of the team. If you think of X-Men, you'll think of Wolverine first. Secondly, you'd probably think of Cyclops, right?
I think of Xavier.
But
because
Cyclops
X-Men
is
Xavier's men, yeah.
Oh yeah, but he's up at the top. Like, if you listed 5 X-Men, chances are Cyclops is one you'd picture.
He is, but I have an unnatural hatred for Cyclops, so I really can't be taken too seriously with my judgment on that.
Yeah. And Xavier's death was... They set it up where he put his mind in another person's body, and then apparently he makes that person look like him eventually. I don't know. It never made sense. There's a lot of things that just don't make sense. Trying to mash 2 stories together, like Gifted and Dark Phoenix Saga. And then Dark Phoenix Saga, a lot of it involved the Shi'ar Empire, and I understand why they didn't use that. Because, yeah, they had a large budget, but I'm not sure it was that large, to go into the whole Shi'ar Empire and, Phoenix on the moon. So.
And I was going to touch on that in what would we do differently part.
We can go ahead and go to that. I mean, what I didn't like about X-Men: The Last Stand is pretty much everything. not the acting, but just about everything else.
And that's a good call. You know, a lot of people would make the same call, and that's why we're here to openly discuss what we hate and what we would do differently. So let's say we're redoing that right now. You know, X-Men 2 has been a hit.
Yeah.
We have...
Jean is gone. And then they have the little Phoenix. That's what we're left with.
And I would have picked it up with her just... First shot I would have done would have been her. Just freaking... You see a giant fireball come out of Alkaline Lake in the shape of a phoenix.
Yeah.
And you see her in the middle of it. And she just collapses on the side or whatever. And, you know, Xavier gets the psychic energy to his mind, and team goes there, they recover her. But they don't know what's going on. It's not any of this subconscious anything. Now, if you don't want to introduce the Shi'ar Empire, and I understand why, because that story becomes very complicated. And could it have been done at the time? Yes, because certain movies had already done big budget alien invasions by that point and had been for a while, like Independence Day. So we could have done a Shi'ar Empire invasion. And it would have worked, I think, but then you would have to stretch out a lot of stuff and continued movies for that. So let's just say it's not...
You would have to introduce a lot of characters. Lalandra and the whole Imperial Guard and maybe the Starjammers. And this cast is already huge.
It is. So let's just say... I'm going to say they don't know what's going on. She's just starting to manifest again. She is mutating.
Yeah.
Something they not know what. Along with that, I'm not going to put Juggernaut in the film unless I can do him right. Do Juggernaut justice. But I'm not going to put... Honestly, I'm not going to put him in the film because I think Juggernaut would be... His backstory is so much of who he is.
Yeah.
And why he is that could be another film in itself.
Maybe do Blob if you need a muscle.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, there are a lot of brotherhood. Like, we never see Sabretooth with Magneto again.
Yeah.
You know, that bothered me. I thought that Tyler Mane did an excellent job as Sabretooth, and I really hoped he had been back for 3, but since I knew they were doing Brotherhood, so I would have brought Sabretooth back. I would have brought Toad back. Yeah, Toad just kind of disappears, too. I mean...
Yeah. You could introduce maybe Avalanche.
Yeah, Avalanche could have been there, and, you know, Avalanche and Pyro were always kind of good sidekicks with each other.
Yeah.
So you could have easily done those guys, and you're getting ready for the war now. But honestly, I don't even think I would have put the Brotherhood in it. I would have gone with the Hellfire Club.
Oh, the Sebastian Shaw and
yeah.
Frost.
Yeah. But, you know, the first time I ever saw the Dark Phoenix Saga, I was too young. Because the Dark Phoenix Saga came out in the comics before I started buying comics.
Well, that came out before we were born. That came out in 76.
Yeah.
Yeah, 76, 77. So we weren't even alive yet.
My first introduction to it, like most people our age, was the 90s cartoon.
Yeah.
And they did a 5-part after-school series. Yeah, it was 5 separate episodes of the Dark Phoenix Saga.
Yeah.
It was really good. But I would have introduced the Hellfire Club. I wouldn't have even gone with the whole cure route. I would have concentrated more primarily on Dark Phoenix. And suddenly, like, she takes off and she's threatening to destroy the world. Like, she starts taking out cities. I mean, we all know that the Phoenix is a galactic essence and she devours galaxies for sustenance.
Yeah.
But we scale it down. She just starts kind of devouring cities. You know, let's say she flies over Paris and, you know, sucks up the Eiffel Tower in a couple of baguettes.
So she's sort of like a psychic parasite almost?
Almost, yeah. I mean, she's feeding off energy and matter of some sort. So, energy, she starts sucking up cities, and the X-Men have to go and stop her. You know, I would have gotten rid of all the love stories, between Rogue and Iceman and Kitty Pryde and that triangle, and, you know, cut out the fat. gotten straight into the nitty gritty. This is Dark Phoenix, most powerful mutant that has ever been. Stuff's gotten real.
Because with the X-Men, they're more. That's not the Avengers where it's the odd couple, odd mismatch of characters. The X-Men are more like a family.
They are,
and so if you see like Iceman and Rogue, you're like, ooh, that's kind of like kissing cousins.
Yeah, but then you got to remember, there's also a lot of romance going on within the X-Men. Always have been. Scott.
Oh, yeah.
So, yes, that can take place. I get it, but at the same time, it's unnecessary for a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
We don't need that kind of fat in there. They could have done a little thing without any dissension between them, just kind of a budding romance. We'll hint at here and there, but
even like a little look or a little like hand holding, that goes a long way.
It does. There's art and subtlety. And we pick it up, and like Charles has to make amends with Eric Letcher because he also knows that this could be the end. So have him gather up his troops, X-Men gather up, and they've got to go try to take on the Phoenix somehow. Yeah, that's how you work Magneto back in the story, and it can go from there. And of course, I would just rather have done that than the mess that became X3.
Yeah.
Hey, you got anything to add to that one?
I think the reason that they did the Cure, I wouldn't do the Cure either. I think the reason they did it is kind of like when they have those camps of like pray the gay away. Because like we said before, X-Men was sort of about racism. And I think nowadays it's about homophobia. And I think that's why they went for the Cure, because for a while they were talking about, let's just cure these gay people.
Mm.
And I think that's where that tied into.
Yeah, I mean,
why they did it.
And the Cure itself could have been a separate movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easily done for a movie without having to have the Dark Phoenix saga in it. But of course, the way we left X-Men 2 off, there's no way we can not do Dark Phoenix now.
Yeah, and I'd have him even recruit even more firepower, like Psylocke. They've never put her in film yet.
Psylocke would have been a good character.
I thought she's had a great look, Asian with purple hair. I mean, that's eye catching. You know what I mean? That sticks out. It's not just another blank face.
I get it. I totally see where you're going with that. And there were a lot of. I wouldn't have put Angel in it. I didn't know. I'm understanding that Angel is a founding member of the X-Men and so on and so forth, but to me, Angel didn't really become relevant until he was Archangel.
Yeah. Unless you're doing Archangel, there's no real point in putting the Angel. I agree with you there, and I love Archangel. Archangel is easily one of my top 3 X-Men favorites. It's like Wolverine, Archangel, and Nightcrawler.
Yeah, and Archangel can't happen without Apocalypse.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can't do that without actually doing that. Which hopefully in the next X-Men film they're doing after they just completed the last one, that we're going to have a brand new Apocalypse, and he's going to bring forth the 4 Horsemen, and hopefully they'll do it justice. So far, the latest incarnations they've been doing have been spot on.
Yeah.
I haven't had any complaints.
But with X-Men 3, it's the way that 2 ended, you pretty much you're painted into a corner. You pretty much have to do Dark Phoenix.
You do. You really do. And they should have just concentrated on doing Dark Phoenix instead of trying to do Dark Phoenix, The Cure, Love Triangle here and there. So messy. Just you're trying to tell several different storylines all at once, and it didn't work.
Do you think there needs to be a character to manipulate Phoenix, like a Mr. Sinister, or even Magneto?
Hellfire Club.
Yeah, Hellfire Club. Yeah. So you'd see Hellfire Club to be the manipulator, just like in the Dark Phoenix saga.
Yeah, I mean that's how it started out with. But no, I think you don't necessarily need it because she has now evolved.
So she's like a force of nature, like an earthquake or.
Yeah, I mean she has evolved into this unknown charter of her own powers, and she has just become. She is no longer Jean Grey. She is the Phoenix.
Do you agree with having Wolverine kill her, or would you change that?
Somebody has to put her down.
Because in the comic book, she killed herself.
That's true. In the comic book, she killed herself, and I think I still would have had Wolverine turn the tide, even for her to kill herself.
Yeah. Like to snap her into, like, Phoenix kicks off for a second, and it's Jean Grey.
Yeah, and I still would have had Cyclops die early in the film, like, even earlier than what X3 did. I would have done it in, like, 5 minutes. For no reason either, but, again...
I'd have a reason. I would have built to it. Like, maybe the team's on a mission, right? And Phoenix is with them just as another team member, and then she turns bad on them, kills Cyclops, and takes off.
I also wouldn't have had Xavier killed. And that's probably the point where I would have put Cyclops getting killed in a giant confrontation with Phoenix. She kills Cyclops.
Yeah. But you have to admit, Cyclops, if you don't like Cyclops, his death should have meant more than it did in the movie. Just because he's such an iconic X-Men character.
I would agree to that. I would. I wouldn't have had Xavier die at all. I thought, because I thought at that point it was still kind of pointless because we've already killed Cyclops. So do we also need to kill Charles? And it just didn't really work for me.
And they're going to bring him back anyway.
Yeah, and they're going to bring him back. So it's the whole death in comics. Does death matter anymore?
Apparently, death doesn't matter in comic book movies either.
Apparently not, and that's something that's always bothered me.
Well, Phoenix sort of started that off. Wasn't she the first character to come back to life? To my recollection.
Possibly, but it really didn't break anything because it was more along the lines of Phoenix died, but Jean Grey lived.
Well, no, even Jean Grey died and became the Phoenix.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing about the Phoenix. The Phoenix can, if you want to date back to mythology, the Phoenix will die in a fire but rise again from its ashes. So,
yeah, because they killed characters. They killed off, I think, Gwen Stacy before that, Green Goblin, but nobody had really come back yet.
Yeah, as a Phoenix, then she would come back because that's what. Yeah. But other characters that have since died in comics or comic films have come back with relative ease, and it takes so much away from the death that you can't even believe.
Anymore, it's hard to find a character that hasn't died.
Yeah, even if you look at Avengers.
Cap's died.
Well, it wasn't Cap.
I meant the comic book Captain America's died.
Comic book Captain America died, yes, but I was going with the movie Avengers. They killed
the movie Avengers.
Coulson.
Coulson's back, and he has a TV show.
Yeah, and I had a huge problem with that because you and I watched that together.
Yeah.
Weekend, and Coulson dies, and we're just kind of like, this is we're like,
they have something to avenge now.
The character who's kind of been with us through every Marvel film since Marvel started its own structure is now gone, and just made us genuinely angry and sad.
Yeah.
But he comes back, and it cheapened the death. It no longer matters.
They even teased the death of Iron Man in that movie.
They did.
He goes up into space, and he's like trying to say goodbye to Pepper. Phone doesn't ring. Or phone rings, she never answers, stuff like that.
Yeah, we all knew Robert Downey Jr. wasn't going to die.
He's like got Iron Man 3.
Yeah, he's like, I've got more movies to make. I'm money.
And then they, in Thor 2, they fake killed Loki.
Yeah, but given it was Loki, you understand that was a trick. I mean, he's the god of mischief.
And then in spoilers, if you haven't seen Captain America the Winter Soldier yet, cover your ears. They do the same thing. They do a fake death of Nick Fury.
Yeah, and I had a problem with that. Watching that, when it happened, I'm like, and the first thing I said to myself was, Fury isn't dead. And lo and behold, Fury wasn't dead.
Yeah, it paused. It gave me a pause for a moment because they showed the body for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, maybe give me that hint of what I didn't. I thought maybe it was one of those life model decoys from the comic books.
Yeah, I didn't even buy it because I just knew that they weren't going to kill Samuel L. Jackson.
Because he sounded like a multi picture deal.
It has like 26 pictures or something like
To
that.
be 80 years old before he fulfills that. So we're keeping Phoenix Saga. We're keeping that, and we're keeping Wolverine killing her, or she kills herself.
Wolverine just kind of talks to her, like.
But he's at the climax of the film with her.
Yeah, and you really need to do that because Wolverine is the central character.
Yeah.
Of these films, he really is. Hugh Jackman has done such a wonderful job and has carried it over through multiple films. Unfortunately, there was Wolverine Origins, but that's for another podcast.
Yeah, that made this one look like Citizen Kane.
Yeah, it did. I've seen some. That was Blade Trinity bad.
Here's a member of the Brotherhood we discussed, Mystique. They've done a lot with her in the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
Would she have a role in your X-Men 3?
Absolutely. Mystique was an important character. I think they made a point with her by having her depowered.
The Magneto just kind of left her there.
It's just like, she used to be so beautiful. And I love that line.
Yeah.
And it works well because Ian McKellen just chews it up when he says it. Because, it's naked Rebecca Romaine laying on the floor. He's like, she used to be beautiful. I'm like, okay. But I understand where he's coming from. He finds no beauty in humanity.
He has a lot of pride in being a mutant.
Yeah, he thinks mutants are beautiful. Humans are ugly, parasitic creatures. And given what he went through as a child through living through Alcatraz and
Auschwitz, wasn't it? Was he in Auschwitz?
Sorry, I was thinking Alcatraz because that was in the film. My apologies. He was in Auschwitz. Everything that happened to him as a child and losing his parents. No wonder he thinks that humanity are scum and need to be wiped.
Would you have recast Alan Cummings' Nightcrawler? We'll just say Alan Cumming didn't want to be in the film. I'm not sure if that's true or not. But for whatever reason, Nightcrawler wasn't in X-Men 3. I would have put him in there, even if I had to recast him.
Maybe. You'd have to find the right guy. And I'm not a big believer in recasting either. I would have kind of tried to do what it takes to get him on set to be Nightcrawler.
It helps that Crawler's heavily... he doesn't look too human. You know what I mean? Blue skin, the ears, tail. I think it'd be easier. It'd be easier doing that than like plucking out Cyclops and replacing him with another one, or plucking out Wolverine.
Mm-hmm.
Because Nightcrawler looks so different. You could make an actor, look more like Alan Cumming than just straight up. But I think he's the heart of that team, and I think he was really missing. I think that's the difference with X-Men 1 and 2 and 3. 3 didn't have any heart.
3 had absolutely no heart. And that's one thing Bryan Singer is really good at. He's really good at giving us heart.
Even Superman Returns, that we talked about last episode, had heart.
Yeah, it did have heart, but
this one heartless. And I think that it needed, if not Nightcrawler, somebody had to step in. Maybe Kitty, maybe Rogue. Somebody had to be the heart of that film, and it just fell flat. Because Dark Phoenix is so dark, it's such a dark story to tell. I mean, that's like their sister just doing unspeakable things.
Yeah, like Jean Grey is more or less dead.
Yeah.
Her consciousness is gone. Everything that was her is gone. Now this body is host to a new evolution. So, yeah, it is very dark. And it's a very dark topic for them to encounter. But, You can have heart in the darkness.
Yeah, somebody needed to step up with heart. It can't be Wolverine. He's it's not his character. Another one of the characters, Storm, any of them need to be in that role.
I'm just not a big Storm fan.
No, I'm not. Her powers are cool, but her personality never really stuck out to me.
Me neither. And like, I would love to have her powers. Weather manipulation.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, at Pittsburgh Plate, it'd be football. It'd be snowing.
Can't beat snow during a football game.
Nope, you certainly cannot. Now we rambled on here for like 50 minutes here.
True, we should wrap it up. Next time, we're not going to do a comic book movie. We're going a little bit. We're keeping in the genre films. We're going to Star Trek Nemesis, which is the final Star Trek film of the original continuity.
Which we will boldly go where we have not yet gone before.
That's right. We'll see you next time. Thank you for subscribing if you haven't already on iTunes. We're now up on that. We should be up on the Twitter, as Chris Jericho calls it, briefly. And we're on Facebook, so click a like because it strokes our egos.
I love having my ego stroked.
It's awesome. Anything else to add?
That this episode was brought to you by the letter Q, the number 7.
And apple cider, the official drink of fall.
And apple cider. All right. Good night, everybody.
Take care.